A couple weeks ago, I did a video where I took famous video game characters and turned them into Spider-Man villains, and in that I had an inkling from Splatoon. Because, Splatoon 3 just came out, or was about to come out at the time of that anyway. Point is, I had done another drawing for a Splatoon-focused episode of Marina from Splatoon that didn't fit into that video game Spider-Man villain episode. And I really liked how the drawing turned out and didn't know what to do with it, so, little mini bonus episode this week. Let's just get into it, shall we? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. It's gonna be nice to just talk about the art process and the ideas behind this character. Don't get me wrong, I really like writing lore and stories for my characters as well, but it's kind of fun to go back to just an episode where I just talk about the art process. And to flesh out how this drawing came about a little bit more, I was going to do a full focus Splatoon episode because Splatoon 3 was coming out, and I didn't exactly know what it was going to be when I went into the first drawing. I was thinking maybe I'd do it as a variety episode, but I wasn't totally sure, so I did something that I never really do. I just started drawing this character, not knowing exactly what it was going to be. I knew it was going to be not a monster, like it was going to be a human form still, but I thought maybe it would be a supervillain, maybe her on the Suicide Squad, maybe Splatoon if it was set in more of a Mad Max style post-apocalypse, and I still kind of like that idea. But as I kept drawing this character, I was just kind of realizing this is just turning out to be Marina from Splatoon in my art style. Maybe slightly aged up a little bit, although looking at her age, in Splatoon 2 she was apparently 18 years old, and by the time of Splatoon 3 she's around 23 years old, so I guess the way I draw her, is around that age, sort of. So maybe it's aged up a little bit, but really it's just me drawing Marina in my art style, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I'm curious if people would be interested in more episodes of me doing that. I haven't done that in ages, and what's kind of funny is I think the last one might actually have been when I took Ben 10 aliens and drew them in my art style. Maybe that wasn't the last one. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But either way, it's been years and years. And what's fun is in that episode, I finally figured out my new coloring style. And it has certainly evolved a lot since then, but a lot of the core elements of it have stayed the same, where I do my shadows with a color, a dark color, often like a dark blue or something like that, on a multiply layer. Sometimes blending the shadows a little bit, but often just leaving them in the sort of blocky or cel-shaded kind of look. Doing my lighting on a glow layer, and the thing that has evolved more since then is mainly doing an extra layer of shadow and lighting by blocking in stuff with the lasso tool and then airbrushing in a lighter layer of shadows. And part of the reason I wouldn't have done that as much back then is that's just an extra step, which makes things look better, but is unnecessary. And back then, I was working a full-time job as well as running this channel, so I didn't have as much time with all my drawings. But, also I just wasn't as good at drawing back then and didn't know that technique. I didn't learn it until a little bit later. Anyway, I just got a little bit nostalgic thinking about that episode and episodes like this of just drawing stuff in my art style. And what's funny is a lot of my favorite stuff that I draw on this channel, even though it does fit into other episodes of turning things into other things, they are kind of just me drawing a character in my art style, a little bit more rendered out, like taking a cartoony character and fleshing them out a bit. I mean, one of my favorite drawings I did last year was Scizor as an SCP in the second episode of Pokemon as SCPs, and that really just is Scizor, but with more rendering to him, maybe made to look slightly creepier. And even Stitch from the second episode of famous cartoon characters on the Suicide Squad last year, that's really just Stitch in more of my proportions, taller, maybe a little bit older looking, slightly different outfit. So I think it probably could be fun to just do an episode like the one I'm doing right now, where I just draw a few different cartoony characters in my art style and, I don't know, talk about the drawing process of them. Anyway, this drawing feels like some top-tier PopCross Studios proportions. Like, it's got all the main traits of a PopCross drawing. It's got the big hands, big feet, big calves, the head in comparison to the rest of the body. The expression, I played around with a few different ideas, maybe making her a little bit angrier looking, but that might have been because I was thinking maybe this would be a supervillain at first. But then I kind of tried to just make it the expression she often has of looking a little bit concerned with her eyebrows, kind of like, ugh. But, in a little bit more the style that I tend to draw expressions and faces and stuff. What I also really loved drawing about this one was the crazy hair, and I drew this before I drew the Inkling from the Spider-Man video game villains episode, which, by the way, the Inkling in that kind of also just looks like an Inkling in my art style. I changed a few things in it. But anyway, I had practice going into that one from doing this drawing for how to do tentacles on the hair, even though that drawing in the other episode was an Inkling, and Marina is an Octarian, so technically different, but still a lot of very similar visual traits. And yeah, drawing out the tentacles was really fun because, you know, for one thing, I just like drawing shiny, glistening kinds of things, and because the tentacles appear a little bit wet, they're on the glistening sort of side, and doing just the big, massive hair was pretty fun. I expanded it a bit more from what she actually has in the games, and I think it looks really cool. And it helps us focus on her face more because of how the tentacles are really all spilling around her head and just focuses us right in on the contrasty parts of her eyes and her teeth and stuff. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with this one. It was a good reminder that a character doesn't have to be super crazy detailed to end up looking really good. And I hope you all like the result as much as I do. Here it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little mini bonus episode to hold you over until Mecha Dinosaurs comes out on Friday, and if you haven't seen famous video game characters as Spider-Man villains, I recommend checking that out. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and the thought I want to leave people with today is another quote from the great Jim Rohn, which says that if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's, and guess what they've got planned for you? Probably not much. One sounds a little bit on the darker side when I say it out loud, but hopefully it's inspiring to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.